Thanks for joining us today on the Deleuze and Guattari Quarantine Collective. Today we're not continuing our reading of Anti-Oedipus. In fact, we have a special episode. We may have more of these coming, by the way. Rather than our reading, we had a chance to sit down and watch the film JonBenet's Tricycle and spend some time with its director and the subject of the film, Andrew Novick, as we discuss how objects work inside of late-stage capital, how representation plays a great deal of effort into how we understand things, and also how the media teaches us what we truly desire. But with that first, I want to just say thank you to Andrew Novick for joining us and letting us do a little screening of JonBenet's Tricycle. It's a documentary. You can grab it anywhere, but ideally, if you head to JonBenet's Tricycle, Google it, you can get it on Vimeo for just a couple bucks. Of course, you can buy the Blu-ray at JonBenet's Tricycle's website. Is that fair? Any other quick plugs I want to do in there at the beginning, Andrew?
No, I think that's it. You know, the Blu-ray does have some extra stuff on it. It has a like a, you know, like you have a virtual fireplace video. It's a video of a fireplace. So my fireplace video is just a tricycle spinning around on that mirror dolly. So you can just have that rolling on your TV at all times. But also I have like the when Kill Yourself Incorporated was going, it was a T-shirt company, but we had an 800 number and people could leave messages, and we had like a lot of really funny and weird, hateful messages. So like I put those on, and then a lot of other like kind of prank phone calls where I would prank telephone solicitors. So like any telephone solicitor calling, I would just keep them on the phone for a long time, and that's on the Blu-ray, and tons of photos and stuff on there. So just lots more context about the weirdness of life.
It is a documentary about that weirdness, and I really enjoy it. A second time through, it still lands with me, and I still really like it. I'm gonna kind of jump around a little bit because I want to just sort of comment on a few things, or ask a couple questions, and then we'll kind of open it up to a larger discussion, because I think the thing I really do want to actually talk about is actually, Roger, it's going to be your point. The tricycle is the empty signifier, which the film even ends with the tricycle, no one driving it, moving as if under its own power forward, and as if something is driving it just by watching it, which I thought was a really great sort of final moment that carried that meaning with it. So I want to make sure we spend some time on that. But just to start with, I just have to ask the broad question. You have a lot of shit. Now, some of us are more familiar with you than others, from the Warlock Pincher days to Cherry Bomb to whatever, but you do have a lot of random shit. Why this thing as the item to make the documentary about? What is this thing that nailed it for you?
Out of all the things, like I probably have a couple handfuls of things I wouldn't mind making a documentary about. But this is the one that was always like talked about. It has an effect on people, like if I bring it in a room or whatever. And really, the original idea was just to take it to psychics, to debunk psychics. Because if a psychic can't get anything off of this trike, like, what good are they or whatever. But so we did the psychics the very first thing, because I didn't want anyone to even know anything about the tricycle. I didn't want the psychics to have known anything about it. So we did all of them on the same day, except for the one we didn't tell what it was. But it was just such a bigger story. Like that, like debunking psychics is, in the end, like that's the least fun thing I can imagine. Like there was so much more cool things that came out of this. So I'm glad that we just took it that far.
It's the psychics alone is such a great concept, and it kind of flows in. The first time, I don't think it landed quite as in the same way as it did the second. I think a repeat viewing's warranted for this film for sure. The idea of, and as we're watching and all of us are discussing in the chat, oh, do we believe in psychics? Do you believe? Do you care? What's this? What's that? But we kind of end in this place where the psychics naturally, because one, it's a creepy little tricycle on its own. Like, just a little girl's tricycle is by nature wonderfully horror movie fodder. But like just that but then the nature of how we see it and how anyone sees it kind of became this sort of larger documentary. It just felt like a really great seed that this whole idea grew out of, if that's fair. I just felt like that was just a really, I enjoyed that quite a bit. I do have
Yeah.
to say, like I mentioned to you last time, Blue Scarf Psychic carrying the fucking water and weight of the entire psychic world as far as I'm concerned.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Jude. Yeah. Yeah,
Jude.
Mariah had a conversation with Jude at the opening premiere of the film at the Denver Film Festival.
I don't think it was a conversation, more of an encounter.
She had an encounter. Yeah, tell her what she said.
Hi everyone. So we were at the movie and I went up to her afterwards and I had said to her, "Thank you for coming. I really enjoyed watching your reading," because the way that she was just so animated and she was just so positive. And she looked me dead in the eye and she said, "I know who killed me." I'm like, you're JonBenet? And so yeah, it was very creepy.
What the fuck? That's the best. That's going to be my new catchphrase.
I know who
I
killed
think.
me.
I know who
Just
killed me.
stare at people. Hey, Brooks, how you doing? I know who killed me. Just what the fuck?
Yeah, she was the best. And also making a documentary too, like I understand a lot more. I'm a big fan of documentaries, but once you make it, you have to choose a narrative. Like it's
Right.
not like you just have all this stuff and you throw it in a editing blender and it comes out. You have to create a story arc, you make a narrative, and you can dictate your point. Like a lot of documentaries, it's like it's about anti Halliburton or whatever. And so we really made a big point of not making this trashing psychics and not making it like we could easily make it like the psychics got everything right, or make it like they got nothing right. And really that was kind of pointless. We showed when they got things right and we showed when they got things so horribly wrong it was funny, like the Bruce Springsteen and stuff, marshmallows. And so I think, yeah, I mean, if you believe in
No, it
psychics,
does. It does walk that really great line because again, Blue Scarf Lady, when I say she's carrying the weight of everyone, I mean it because like enough of the others, like I'm generally a skeptic of all of that shit, obviously, but I sit there and I go, huh, like she's, huh, the whole time she says something that's like, huh, because it's weird. Now, again, like someone made the comment, like, are they just pulling images from things? And the answer to me is yes. And it's kind of what I wanted to get into next because it's hard to describe, one, as an old person, what news used to be like to the kids. The second thing is it's hard to describe what Colorado was like during this time. And I kind of mentioned it before the film that there is this really strange way that the nightly news, which we all watched over dinner or in the evening before bed or in the morning, always had JonBenet. It always had JonBenet. And so I mentioned that I was walking my son, and this is before this, I haven't thought about JonBenet in years, but like a year ago, I was walking my son during Christmas time and I saw those, and my brain went right back to, because it was a brick house with the fucking candy canes. And it was just this like, why did that go back to that? It's because it was every day. So I figured because you showed so much news, you have so many of these old tapes. What about the old news versus the new, how it was talked about? I just thought I'd give you a second and sort of kick you off on that direction if you're up for it.
Yeah, I mean, and there was no CNN really at that time, or it was just starting, and so the local news really had to carry a lot of weight, I think. And the one woman that we see a couple times on there, she's standing in front of a screen. Um, she came to Denver from Los Angeles, and Natalie Peugeot is her name, and she brought with her this idea about like standing in front of a screen and like walking around and stuff, and like everyone in Denver kind of hated it, and they were like, "This is awful." Like she only lasted here about a year or two, and now that's what all the news is like. Like she really was like way like 20 years ahead of her time, but yeah, local news does seem kind of sensationalist and like um it's kind of bizarre, and probably a lot of people don't even watch local news nowadays because like you can watch news any time of day, like you don't have to wait for it at the 10 o'clock news hour.
Yeah, it was a very different beast back then. It was how we got all of our news. There was occasionally you'd have like the hour-long network news that might lead in or lead out from it, but everyone knew Ward Lucas. Like everyone knew Ward Lucas from when
Yeah.
you were a child. Like it's just these are people who just they were like family almost in a creepy way.
I saw
It
Ed
was a different time.
Sardella at the post office, and I was like, "Oh my God,
Jesus
it's Ed
Christ.
Sardella! I'm at the post office." He was the grapefruit on TV for me.
That's wild. Fox 31's Libby Weaver. I had a thing for
Oh
when I was
yeah,
in high school. Like it's just very weird how like these people and how they become just such a deep personality. And they would get. I remember the first time I saw. I think it was Ed Sardella actually. Was like a celebrity at the like he'd go into a restaurant and it was a big deal. I was working at one and everyone was like, "Oh my god, oh my god." It was like a rock star walked in. It was very strange.
yeah,
No, the way news was handled then, and even the tabloids, and you go through in your show, and everyone is always shocked. Well, the kids are always shocked, and I'm going to call them the kids because y'all are. Um, the way tabloids used to be, now they're just like relationship magazines and all of that. But people don't remember before they were alive. The tablet they published awful photos, death, and like faces of death level shit. And this is no different. To me, the stringing up of a doll in different positions is like pornographic. I don't know how else to describe it.
yeah,
Wasn't there a tabloid that actually showed the real autopsy photos?
yeah. That was the one that was in there.
That was the
yeah,
one that was in there.
yeah. And so that was. I
Yeah.
don't know if people get that from the movie, but like that Globe magazine that actually had pictures from the autopsy that got leaked because the Boulder police had their photograph developed at Moto Photo, which is a friend of mine actually worked at Moto Photo. She got crime scene pictures all the time. She made doubles of, but uh, so they leaked these pictures to the Globe, and then local stores weren't going to carry them. And it's like you'll carry all these other, or like top pageant pictures and all this like other sensational stuff, but you won't carry this one issue. And so I bought a bunch from the distributor, and I put up flyers around so that they couldn't censor it. Um, and I think I sold a couple in that period, but it's definitely pretty creepy. But that mannequin stuff with Mark Helgenberger is also creepy in a different way.
Very much. One of the lines that stuck out to me this time around is the woman at the Temple Buell Theater asking you, "Do people want to touch it? Can I touch it?" Like it was this very. There's no way there isn't like an underlying sex thing, but it like all I could think is just I want to touch it. Let me touch it. Can I touch yours? Do you touch it a lot? Did do is that the thing that happens? Because it's one of the things we see throughout it is people almost can't help but touch it.
Yeah, and the fact that they don't run up to it and touch it when they know what it is. If I just set it somewhere, they would get up and they would run up and ride it. But like,
Yep.
but if they know what it is, they come up and then they slow down and they're like, then they ask, and then they're still not sure if they want to touch it, but then they always do, and then they take their picture. Yeah, we have plenty of people taking selfies with it.
And it's when you watch the psychics when they're dealing with it, they're stroking and caressing it. It was an extraordinary scene to watch this time around. So those are the things I wanted to sort of get up. I have no doubt we've got some people who want to have conversations, have questions, and I know Andrew, you actually enjoy asking questions of people because you're kind of that person. So I'll open it up first to anyone but Andrew. Do you have questions, comments, literally anything? I think we are now open. Have some fun. Who wants up? I'm going to call on you, Roger, if no one else goes.
I'll step in here.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah. Man, what an excellent documentary, Andrew. Like, fantastic work. And yeah, you've been at this sort of thing for a long time. So, Matt, incredible respect. I'm kind of curious now. Well, I have a few questions, but I'll start by asking, in terms of the reaction of, or lack thereof, or, I mean, I don't think you reached out to them for this, but I'm just curious about, like, the JonBenet Ramsey's family, like, what role they played, if any, this filming process. I don't mean participants, but you're thinking about them. I'm not saying, oh, sensitivity, because this has been, done to death by everyone. Obviously, I think any sort of coverage of it today is almost inconsequential or just symptomatic, right? But I'm just
Unintended.
curious.
Yeah. It's funny because it's like in a lot of ways it's not really about them. Like there's a radio, like a nationally syndicated radio guy. He's kind of a web sleuth, and he does like a crime radio show. And he's asked me to be on there a couple times, like around the anniversaries after the movie came out. And he actually got a hold of John Ramsey because he was in touch with the family somewhat, because he was trying to help solve the murder, and I think he didn't think that the parents were involved, so he was kind of working with them. So he actually showed John Ramsey a picture of the trike from the movie or from the website or something, and he said, can you verify, is this JonBenet's trike? And I was like,
Wow.
I guess that would be the one thing I would want, for them to validate it. And his answer was no comment. So, which is good.
It's interesting that he refused to comment.
Yeah, and the fact, I mean, if he said like, no way, that's not her trike, like this is just a sham or whatever, like that would suck, because that could actually have done some damage to
That'd be
my.
awkward if you had to call bullshit on her.
Yeah,
Call bullshit
yeah,
on her.
yeah.
Because
Then
you have
then I
proof.
would
You have
get
photographic
involved, right?
proof.
Then I go to the news.
That would be
and
a
I
hell of
say,
a fight.
yeah, I want to go like meet him and like be on Geraldo together to talk. He's denying this.
And then
But-
people would call him a liar, and then it would go way past that now because he's caught in this lie. Jesus
Yeah.
Christ. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, to me, it's about, like, in a lot of ways, it's about the obsession with true crime, which I also have. But like, it's huge now. Like, it's bigger now than it was
It's so big.
even when JonBenet happened. There's like all these podcasts and everything, and like, wondering about the unknown and stuff. So yeah, as this professor in the movie says, like, this movie's not meant to solve the crime. It's to really look at in the mirror and be like, why are we even watching this? Why are we interested in this? Because we are, but why?
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I agree. It's adjacent in a very important way. The other thing I'm kind of curious about is the tricycle actually the weirdest object? This whole like thing, or have you become desensitized in a way? The tricycle
I
and
mean,
its
I'm
presence after having
desensitized.
handled it in so many ways. Is it for you just? I don't know. Is it no longer the tricycle? I don't know.
I mean,
I'm curious.
I'm kind of desensitized to it, I think, except for if someone really has a strong reaction to it, it kind of gives me chills because of their reaction. But I'll turn it over to Mariah to see if there's anything more weird or whatever that I collect.
Well, I'm sitting in his living room looking at a frame that has, are those monkey paws or
I think they're like a
squirrels?
raccoon paw.
Raccoon paws. There's a zombie Barbie that's dentist Barbie. Yeah, no, it's not at all the weirdest thing he has. Yeah, he's a taxidermied fawn. Yeah. Don't you have a painting by John Wayne Gacy?
Yeah, I have a Gacy painting. The Gacy painting's pretty weird. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like, and that's pop culture too, but it's like, that was actually touched by a murderer.
Yes, I think
Yeah.
that's
Pedophile.
arguably
And he's
arguably stranger in some ways.
I don't think he has any like murderabilia other than that, I would think. I mean, I don't know if you have any like murder objects.
Yeah, I don't
He also
think so.
has a Lizzie Borden's axe painting. Yeah, it's I am an end of life doula or a death doula, and so I'm desensitized in the horrific way. I'm more in touch with the emotional side of death and the spiritual side of death. But Andrew's really not a weird guy. He's actually the sweetest human being I've ever met in my entire life. And he was long before we were partners. Like he's full of empathy and curiosity and the need to understand why people are obsessed with things is almost just as innocent as the need for him to know why, how clocks work and, how physics works, and the fact that he's worked with physicists and as his day job for over 30 years, it deals with curiosity. It's really not that strange.
Yeah, in the bigger picture.
No, I think that's I think that's good to defend this behavior as not strange in a substantial sense.
It's just curiosity, and we hide death so much in this society and don't want to talk about it.
Mhm.
And I think there's some outrageous statistic about, something like 80% of true crime listeners are women. And the reason that's the case is because they're trying to prepare themselves to not die. But there's more to it.
You know what it is? Like, stay sexy, don't get murdered.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
My mom had a funny thing at the premiere. My mom went up to David Thomas, who's the professor in the movie.
He's known in our circle as the hot professor.
He's a really cool guy. But she was like, "Thank you so much for making my son not look crazy."
Yes,
Because
there's a weird legitimization of it.
yeah, and he brings in the kind of intellectual aspects of the movie and the pop culture and stuff. It's not just like, oh, there's a crazy guy who collected the weird stuff,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My other question is, I mean, I don't know much about the application of these theories of fun that you and that professor have had, but he notes in the documentary, that the people who discuss this case are probably not going to be the serious people, right? And I'm curious, being kind of ignorant of the theories of fun, and what that means, how you applied those in the filmmaking process. Clearly, you guys are laughing and smiling throughout it, but I'm just curious, like, what the practice of fun in the documentary making was.
Yeah, and the fun, you can break down fun into like a bifurcation of what's real and what's expected and what's unknown or what's a sense of wonder. And so something fun is something that you didn't know what was going to happen, or it's not something that you normally do all the time. And so I think the expectations, which is one of the reasons I really enjoy presenting this movie, is because no one really knows what it's about. No matter how much you can have log lines and taglines and trailers and stuff, people have a preconceived notion of the movie. And it's almost never correct, I think, because the movie takes you places that you could not have guessed. It took me places I could not have guessed. So I think that's kind of the basis of the theory of fun, is presenting something that either goes beyond or outside of expectations. And that's why you remember something, and that's why you talk about something the next day. You're like, oh, I saw this band last night and they did this, this, and this. It's the things that you didn't expect. And so that follows not just with fun, but just interest and wonder, I think, too. But it's literally that kind of bifurcation of fun and play that you're experiencing something that you didn't know how it was going to turn out.
Well, it's interesting to maybe push back a little bit on your bifurcation, or actually to maybe grow it a little bit. But in terms of presenting the documentary to people, that presentation of expectation, right, or lack of expectation, is this weird intention. Kind of gets at kind of like say I sit down to play D&D, right? You never know what's going to happen during a game of D&D. But one of the things about D&D is that you never know what's going to happen during a game of D&D. So it's this, I don't know, it's weird. That's curious though, the screening process. Screening your own film just sounds like screening one's own film sounds like a very fun thing to do.
Well, so on the D&D aspect, are you saying that because your expectation is you don't know what's going to happen, then that's kind of Mobius in some way? Or
Yeah, we're able to kind of regulate this, right? It's not so much that it's unexpected. It's kind of that some kind of expected or some expectations are set and then allow the fun to come from that. And that's a weird difference, I think, between maybe a couple different types of fun. A fun and that's kind of organized versus a disorganized fun. And the disorganized fun, to me, in the instance of the documentary, seems to be searching the garage, looking for that tabloid, right? Whereas the organized fun is the actual cutting of the documentary, right? The video editing and then the subsequent screenings.
Yeah, those are two very different things. And like, whenever I'm looking for anything, I find 100 things that I wasn't looking for, and those are also amazing. So it's pretty awesome
Yes,
to
yes.
come across. Like I'm digging through boxes.
That was one of my favorite parts of the documentary is just
Oh,
kind of digging through this American Pickers kind of collection.
yeah,
You
Come
got
on over. He's got
I
you
got
got a
plenty to
lot
look
more
at.
stuff to pick through.
Well, I've thought about too. I mean that art show of my collections. I could put a link in the chat or something. But that art show was a 3 month long show. It was the biggest show that gallery had. It was on the national news, CBS Evening News with Katie Couric. And it was so amazing to go through all my stuff. And I literally photographed every object and put it in this exhibition. Um, and I've thought about unboxing, like having unboxing videos like on a YouTube channel or something. I just pick
Yeah,
a
that
box
would
in
be
my garage,
fantastic.
just like, because everything's got a story. Like some things I don't necessarily know who gave it to me or where I got it, but a lot of things I do. And the context of the stories of those things are way more than just a photo of the thing.
Sure. That kind of brings me actually to my next discussion point, and after that, I'll shut up for a little bit so somebody else can say something. um, but I'm kind of curious, and maybe the documentary has informed this in some ways, maybe it hasn't, but you're a lifelong collector before the documentary, it seems. Kind of about the way in which you kind of imbue an object with fun or some sort of sacredness or retention. Do you have any kind of ritual?
Not, no, I don't think so. I literally, if I see something I want to collect, and like I consider a collection anything I have two or more of. So like if I have one of
Mhm.
something, then it's not a collection, it's just a thing I have, and it's kind of, something I like. But if I have more than one of it, or if I see one at a thrift store, it's like, oh, I have another one of those. If I get another one, then it could be part of this collection. So I think that kind of grouping is part of a thing, and so to have more of something in a
Okay,
certain
so for
group,
you to have more than one. Okay,
yeah. Um,
interesting.
but then also the categorizing is like a daunting kind of part of the um, not really ritual, but like if I collect Dukes of Hazzard stuff, if anyone remembers that or knows of that TV show, it was a while ago from my
Yes.
childhood, but they did a lot of merchandising. So I have a Dukes of Hazzard metal trash can, and I have a Dukes of Hazzard sleeping bag for kids, and I have a Dukes of Hazzard watch, and a Dukes of Hazzard lunchbox. So does my Dukes of Hazzard trash can go with all the Dukes of Hazzard stuff, or does it go with my metal trash cans? Because I also have a BG's metal trash can and uh, some other metal trash cans. I have a whole collection of watches, weird watches. So it's like I have to separate out the Dukes of Hazzard collection into these other collections because it's a physical object. You can like put. If it's a website, I can tag it with a lot of different
Like
things.
that dilemma.
Yeah,
Like
so
that
that's the
dilemma.
collector's dilemma. If you have like hundreds of separate collections. So I know that wasn't exactly your question about ritual, but I don't really have
No, I think that's
so much.
perfect. Yeah, no, you've explained your ritual, which I think is probably like illustrated a little bit by this tension and also a lack of if at least as far as I can understand, a bit of randomness, a lack of order in
Yeah,
terms of your
yeah, for
collecting
sure.
habits.
I just
So
posted a
that
link
makes
to
something
watch
of a ritual.
later. I just posted a link
Oh,
to watch
awesome.
of the
Awesome.
CBS
It's
Evening News. Katie Couric did not like my collections, by the way. She's like, oh, like she wasn't here. She sent Steve Hartman. He's like the Assignment America guy who goes out around the country, and he was awesome. He brought some stuff he collected. He came in my garage and he was like, "What's in this box?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And he's like, "What if I throw it away?" And I was like, "Don't do that." And he's like, "Why not?" And I'm like, "Because there's great stuff." And he's like, "But you don't even know what's in here. You won't even miss it. You won't remember it." I was like, "But I know it's cool." So like he kind of
Proving yours.
taunted me. Yeah, he was awesome. But then yeah, so
It's
when
weird.
after the piece they show and she's just like, "Oh, I feel like I want to wash my hands after that," or whatever. She was kind of bummed out on it.
Well, there's an aspect, and it's one of the things, like when I watch it, and I mean when we had a chance to talk, that like identify personally with. I collect, I collect weird, stupid shit. I've always done it, and it's specifically things that shouldn't exist. And I don't know how else to put it, but like the only reason that these things exist is because of the weird way that things get made by this algorithm or this person making a thing based on this that makes no like an example. I just bought. If you remember the dancing cactuses, I don't know if you've ever had one. Um, I found one that plays, and it's not a joke. Has three hard Spanish Mexican hip hop songs, and it's from Squid Game. So
Whoa.
it's a Squid Game dancing cactus that raps
Oh my god.
Spanish. It,
That's
I have
amazing.
literally no idea how this exists as a thing, and it shouldn't exist. There you go. There you go.
Nice.
But it's like just things that shouldn't be things, and it's one of the things I love about this is all of your stuff. It's the reason I like the aesthetic of it. It's the reason I personally went, well, this makes sense. None of that's, of course, it's not garbage. That's a Mork from Work doll, even though like I think any reasonable person may say otherwise. I get it, and it's a thing I've always enjoyed, sort of the fascination of what we build and why, and that someone spent time on a thing, even if that thing is really just a fire in itself. So I really loved that. Yeah, fascinating shit. I want to take a minute and talk about the empty signifier, the way that the tricycle becomes whatever kind of people need it to be. Roger, if I can get you to take a moment and expand a little bit.
I was reflecting on my comment, and it could be the empty signified because it's the object.
Mm,
But
right.
that's the problem. It could be both. The empty signifier in the sense that it comes from nowhere, and when it starts to play a role into the story, I think it's Andrew, right? Andrew gives it the story a sort of sense, and then you get all those psychics coming in and you know building sense on it like over and over, and the movie takes all those layers at the same time. So um the tricycle is this material object, but at the same time it takes on so many meanings at the same time. I should reflect more on the inverted position, saying that it's the empty signified, because yeah, so I'll leave it at
It works for me. It's one of those things. It has no meaning on its own. Like I love the cover because uh, it's just the tricycle. There's no picture of JonBenet Ramsey. There's the picture, the cover of the documentary. It's just a very simple image of it. And even the promotional pics are all it's the sock monkeys riding the tricycle is kind of like the most hint I get out of anything, and it has no meaning other than being just that, and how little effort it takes to bestow it. And the psychics, I think, are almost, um, I don't know, they're the ones who tell us this, and they do it sort of in that moment as you bring it out and how your body language is or how they immediately react, and because that's how psychics work. They're brilliant emotional readers, and you're not exactly not emotive, Andrew, just letting you know.
I tried so hard.
Um, but they don't need much to pick up on, and at that point they run with it. And all it takes is just the littlest sense of a person's movement or eye contact or how they move or even how you place it and how you're ginger with it versus slamming it on the table or how you handle it. All of those things are things that imbue it with a secondary meaning. And then when you lay the like nuclear bomb of meaning on them and all of them recoil and all people do where they go, oh, but what? Because it's creepy. It's this. Oh, fuck. And it's that transition and that movement into becoming the thing. And it's a lot. I know you have a ton to say on it, but I just kind of, I had to comment because I really love the way that it kind of moves through the story that way.
Yeah, and the psychics, when I got out the Tricycle, it would have that squeak, like that. I was like, it's trying to be like ginger with it, but then it like has like an awful squeak, which was amazing. But, and the sock monkey was really meant to, it was really meant to just kind of get them to warm up to the camera being there and stuff. Um, I didn't think it was really going to be in the final edit. It was really just to get them to get.
Well, you're throwing them off the scent. Like
Yeah.
you were trying to throw them off the scent, give them a baseline that was some other thing, or maybe just not just go right to little girl tricycle.
Right. But then in the end, because a lot of them said the same thing about it, whether that was true or not, it was interesting that they all kind of, they come from the same kind of unconscious school of perception or whatever. And it was like, I see a boy and I see a man and stuff. It was like, so that was really fascinating. And I put it in the movie because it was like, so we had the scene where the woman describes that was her childhood object. Cause I was just like, we need some kind of control object that we know what it is. But it was interesting that we ended up putting that in the movie because it was just as interesting as the trike in the sense of just giving it to psychics and seeing what 6 different psychics say about it.
Well, it was because the sock monkey, and again, we're talking about being Midwest white kids in the 80s. That's kind of the people we're talking about here. I don't know any guys our age who actually grew up with a sock puppy, a sock monkey. That like it was my female friends, my cousins. So when they said boy and all of them went to it, it was like this. Wait, what am I missing? Where am I disconnected from everything?
Yeah, I agree. My mom collects monkeys. My mom's not a huge collector, but she collected one thing in her life, and it was monkeys. And so,
my mom too.
Oh man, what is it about?
Did she grow up in Inglewood? Did she grow up in Inglewood?
Yes. Oh no, she didn't. She didn't grow up in Inglewood. She grew up in Ohio. I grew up in Inglewood, but yeah. So she had sock monkey, and she was really enthralled with the sock monkey. But yeah, I don't know any boy who has a sock monkey. Now that you mention it,
it was funny. And then the ending, I kind of wanted to just also take a second on, and then we'll open it back up. You placing the trike at the grave, going and doing that. First off, it's also, I think, the only scene that you don't shoot that's in Colorado. It's not in Colorado.
Correct.
And so it's like everything else is there. So I have 2 things. First, you kept writing in, does anyone know where we are? Does anyone know where we are? Please, no. Tell me where you were and why you kept saying that.
It's something I wasn't sure if people get in the movie because it's like you show this thing where I'm taking it apart and like what the fuck is he doing taking that apart? And then I take it to the airport or whatever, and then you see it like get off the plane, and so it was meant to be kind of this interspersed road story, like oh where are you going, whatever, and then you're at this vast thing like city with all of these road signs and big trees. We're kind of zeroing in to Marietta, Georgia from Atlanta.
Oh shit.
So I
get it now.
So we flew to Atlanta and then drove to Marietta where she's buried. And that was where the family had moved to Boulder from. And
well, that's where her Patsy's sister was buried.
Yeah.
And everyone, like that's their family plot.
Yeah. And Patsy is buried there now too. And so, I mean, to me that it may be kind of an Easter egg too, for people who are super into the crime, that she, they had this murder. It was on Christmas. Within the second week of January, or maybe even the first week of January, they had already moved. They moved back to Georgia. They took the body. They took all the evidence. It was like really fast. so I felt like we had to go there. Like my boss actually was telling him about making the movie, and he was like, "Where's the kid buried?" And I was like, "In Georgia." He's like, "You got to go there. You got to take the trike. You got to go give her back the trike." Like, and I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Just go take the trike to the grave and give it back to her." I was like, "Holy shit!" Like, and he was being kind of flippant, but then I'm like, "That's actually a pretty powerful thing because the trike was part of her a happier time in her life, right? It was like she was just a kid riding the trike. She wasn't a beauty queen with all the pressure of the pageants and her parents and stuff. And like, I don't know, she probably liked to be in the beauty pageants to some degree, maybe not as much as she was, um, but yeah. And then taking the trike and kind of putting it on her grave, like that was pretty intense. Like it was cool. And I took it apart. I think just I think there was some limit to how big of a box I could check, and I didn't want to mail it because like what if the fucking post office loses it? I mean, the airline could have lost it, but at least it's on the same plane with me. And so I was just like, I got to put this in a smaller box, and it was like weird taking it apart, but it was also like whatever I do to it, I'm going to film it, and it ends up being kind of a fun, music only, like not any talking. There's a lot. The movie's got a lot of talking, so it's like it was a fun kind of part of the road story is like taking it apart and then putting it back together in Georgia, and taking it to the graves. It was like I just thought it was a fun kind of thing to like dismantle it and put it back together.
I appreciate because I'm betting it crossed your mind even for a moment of doing the dismantling of it alongside the description and the tabloids of the autopsy.
That did not cross my mind. Where were you when I was making this?
Oh, shit.
And that was, I mean, it was 20 years later. And we were there and not any kind of certain date, not her birthday, not the death day or whatever. There were people at the graves. There were people hanging up ornaments in the trees, and people asking us what we were doing, and we had to actually wait for some people to leave before we could. So as many people go to Boulder and go see the house and take their picture at the house, they're also going to her grave. Like probably daily. And
Oh, it's all the time.
We wrote them for a location release, and so many people were filming there, especially because TV shows were going there because of the 20th anniversary and stuff. They charged us $700 for a location release to film there. It's like when people post like, "I can't believe you would make this movie and try to profit off this crime," or whatever. It's like, A, we didn't make any money on the movie. B, that fucking cemetery is making money off the dead body in their place.
Wild. No, the crazy thing about these tragedies, and a lot of people who see them happen or watch on TV, when you have been a national murder victim, your gravesite will never not be loved. And it's one of the strangest things I've ever seen, having watched a few of them have this happen. When you go and you feel like you don't visit a grave forever when you know someone. At some point you kind of just stop going and then you make a return back. And it's this weird feeling of intense personal guilt when you show up and it's obvious, literally random day of the week, 7 people came, someone kissed the gravestone as they did for her.
Uh-huh.
They're laying Beanie Babies and toys, and it's just this really awful feeling of like you're the person who doesn't, but it's because when you're at that level, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of people want to visit your grave. All you need is for 3 to do it on any given day. The odds are pretty solid.
Yeah.
And so it's a very strange it's a strange reality to live in when you're a dead famous victim. It's extraordinary.
I know who killed me.
That's going to be the title of this episode, by the way. That's going to be
Perfect. That is perfect.
No, we'll leave. Any other last questions, comments? Andrew, any questions for us about watching it? We are a weird group who read weird books, and we have lots of weird opinions. So if you have anything you want to know, no one here is going to hold back. Don't worry about it.
Good.
We are a loud, annoying people.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to hear any kind of critical comments on it. Like I can handle it. But also I'm curious, like this movie did not get in a bunch of festivals. It's not a typical documentary style because the interviewer is obviously familiar and we use the interviewer to show reaction. Some critics didn't like that. And I posted this all over like some of the JonBenet web sleuth groups, mostly women, which is weird. But like a lot of them were turned off by it. I thought they'd be really interested in it, and turned off by it, not meaning they watched it, but meaning like this is horrible, like this is exploitative or whatever. It's like no. Geraldo and every single news show that showed her dancing around in lipstick and wigs, that's exploitative. Her parents putting her in those pageants was exploitative. This movie, who the people being critical of it had not watched it yet, or at all, um, they assumed what it was about. And so I guess my question now, because I'm still trying to promote the movie, like, is there a way to promote it that, I mean, I like people not knowing what it's about. We talked about expectations, but if the expectations are so negative that they're not going to watch it, then that's I fail if people don't actually watch it.
I have a
I think hate
strong.
watching.
I actually think that. So let's break things up. Let's not necessarily ascribe to the JonBenet true crime people that they think it's disgusting because it's disgusting. They think it's exploitative because it's exploitative. They say these things because, to go back to Roger's point about the tricycle being an empty signified, the documentary kind of is too. It is the meaning that you put into it. And these people who their obsession and their personal arousal is the death of a little girl, when you actually kind of show them that, which is what this does, probably not the audience you want.
Yeah, that's
and
fair.
But they're not even watching
Yep.
it.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, they probably did,
I would
and
add
they
one
probably.
thing.
True crime fanatics. True crime fanatics are the ones who discuss exploitation more than anyone else, probably.
Yeah, they're awful.
you, yeah.
But
No,
Roger?
Andrew,
I
I think
would say
people will
something.
hate watch
Okay.
it in terms of promotion. But, sorry.
We're the same generation, and it's a pretty punk rock documentary. It shows your biography shows all through it. It's a really prankster kind of thing. On one side you have the exploitation, the capitalist exploitation of this girl and stuff, and you're trying to make something like something different. Stitch stuff together like the DIY kind of thing. So that's probably why one of the aspects that it's like bringing punk rock to TV. It doesn't fit. It's like having Fear on fucking SNL. It's just a shit show, and people are just like, "What the fuck is that?" So I think it's a matter of a different discourse. It's a different form of communication. It's also a different structure. So I'm just stating the obvious. You know that as well, but I don't have any tips.
No, I would also say you have a problem. My first thing is I would say there's two. I'm going to give the critique, and then it's the others. The others a critique that's actually a compliment. I would just say that it's the name. It's the way that JonBenet's Tricycle is up front. It's not so much that it, and this is the other half. It's not about the tricycle. I mean, it 100% is, but the tricycle is simply the central object that's exploring the larger theme. Obviously, you know this. So you've actually made something that is smarter than it is putting off at first. And so the audience, I would say that you should be more aiming at is, I don't want to say people like us, because that sounds weird, but there's a kind of person who kind of likes the story of things, the idea of things, the discussion of things. And this fits very cleanly more into that than just, it's not just a simple documentary about, hey, here's this object. It isn't. There's actually a much larger story here.
Yeah, so I mean, in some sense, I guess I could have interviewed some web sleuths and getting their disgust on camera, and then I can pitch the movie as like web sleuths hate this movie. Because I was really thinking that they would be into it because it's like
Do that,
looking further
please.
in. They want to look at everything and
Do
look
that.
really far in, but they don't even want to know about this.
And it's, I think, and Orby hits it. It's less that ultra true crime. It's the American pickers people, the people who, like, when I get this, and that's why I think if I had to tell you where I get like aroused for this, where my sexuality comes from, why I want to touch it, is because I have things like this that are very weird, one of a kind, like moments in time captured in an object that people care about. And as you have those and as people see them, it's not at all really the object. It's the treasure hunt. It's the story of the treasure. And it's, why does treasure attract us? And in this case, why does treasure matter? And so it's American pickers people who have that storage wars people, that kind of thing. Feels like actually, this is the story of this object, but it's why we give a shit about objects specifically like this.
Yeah. Yeah, the headline could be like, or the subtitle, like, a man who is involved in storage wars with himself. Competing with himself to figure out which object he likes the most or the least.
Storage strangling. That's what. Maybe poor taste, but.
Yeah, it could be something like that. If I had to say though, it's this is not the first time I've heard about the movie, Andrew. This, like, the first time I watched it was you and I reconnected because I was buying Warlock Pincher's merch again, and I was like, oh shit, and I'd gotten an email, oh shit, it's out, finally I can watch it. It's not the first time. I didn't fight to watch it before because it felt like it was the documentary about a thing, which some people like. It's generally not for me, but it's 100% not that. This is a discourse. This is a very, and I mean this, it's a very good documentary.
I appreciate that. I appreciate everyone's, like, comments and just watching it and stuff. It's, I've screened it several times, and it's just always fascinating to see what people ask and what people are interested in, and it's awesome because and every time whenever I watch it, I'm like, damn, this is a good movie. Like, I really, we set out to do a thing, and like, I don't think I would really change that much if I redid it or whatever.
Have you ever gotten a negative comment from someone who said they watched it and it was horrible and they just hated it?
No, never.
Yeah. Anyone who's likes it.
And I'm sure there are people like who came to some of the screenings who didn't come up to me afterwards because they hated it or whatever. But like the people who come up are like, I didn't really know what this was going to be about, but it was amazing. Or, those kind of comments is exactly what I.
Well, I would vote. I think a very simple change would just be the title. And I think that might do it. So you do this, there's this moment. And I think if there is a moment for me of like truth in it, is when she's asking you and you're like, oh, I'm actually gonna make a documentary. And she's like, oh, what about? Which thing? Haha. And you, for the only time I've ever seen ever, and it's actually a decent amount, are sheepish and a little embarrassed.
You need to hang out with him more.
No, but I mean, like, the whole thing, you're smiling, and it's this first moment where you're like, you're trying to muster almost the courage to say what the thing is.
Yeah.
That moment is a powerful moment that doesn't land at all because literally everyone watching it already knows. And anyone watching it who already knows, there's two people. People like my mom, who I said, oh, I watched this documentary, JonBenet's Tricycle, and she's like, why would you watch that? Because to her, it's the story of child murder.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it is. And because it's hard to get away from that. Whereas if it was just called the trike, the pink tricycle.
The puppets.
Yeah, the sock puppet and the trike. Some whatever
tricycle.
it may be.
That'd be better. Andrew Novick's
Andrew's tricycle.
The story of things.
The story when you said the story of things, Mariah and I both like looked at each other like, yeah, that's a great tagline.
It's a story of things with a photo of it in front of a whole bunch of your other shit in a wall and nice high contrast with poppy colors, and that's it. Story of things doesn't say which one it is. It's just one of the other things in it. And
or somebody taking a selfie with it.
Yeah, exactly. It's because then the rest of it is, it opens, you're a nutcase who's got all this shit. What the fuck is this? oh wait, what? And then it's the left turn. That moment can land stronger, and I think the name alone is what sets people off. Again, the documentary, and I having been through, having been a person who's in the situation that the Tricycle in theory might be, who's touched a lot of really people's nerves about major tragedies. If you open and tell people you're going to be talking about a tragedy, people turn away, even if you have a really fucking good thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
and
it's
I mean,
just
to me,
because people don't like that.
yeah. And I thought, well, this is obviously a flippant but catchy title that it's going to make people like, oh, I'm going to read about what this is about and see what could possibly be about a tricycle. Like I maybe naively thought
Well,
it would just be enough of an eye-catching thing that people would look further. But no, they don't need to
well,
look further. They can already judge it by just the title alone.
I will do a self plug here because it is worth checking out Brix's TED Talk, which
Dude.
is on the server somewhere.
That threw me off so fucking hard.
Well, that's the
Chris said
point.
that.
For those who don't know, pause this and go search Brix Brown TEDx, watch it, and then come back. You'll know. But I mean, Andrew already knows. I open it by talking about how meaning is produced, how our experience kind of creates the moment to moment of our lives, how that moment to moment is how we tell stories, and an event, a hardcore event, is kind of this thing that reorganizes all of those moments. And I'm going through this is like heady philosophy stuff. There, thank you very much, Bob. And then about halfway through, I start telling my story about my life, and I'm this, I'm that, blah blah blah. And then I mention that I was friends with the shooters at Columbine, and now at that
You say my
point,
friend Dylan. The line is burned into
my
my
friend
fucking
Dylan.
mind.
It's a weird moment,
Wow.
and you should have been in the room. It was fucked up. Everyone, there's a chill because everyone suddenly realizes. And my point is, now that you know that, I can never not be that. Like my life will always be that. I've said so. My story, I could have up front said, "Hey, I'm Brooks Brown. I'm going to tell a story about tragedy and blah blah blah." But literally, in the program for this originally, it had no description. I was the only person who had no description for my talk. I had no subtitle and no title. And it was just Brooks Brown, blah, blah, blah. And it's because you want that moment, because it turns people. If I say, oh, I'm going to talk to you about a bunch of kids getting murdered, but I'm going to talk to you actually about how tragedy changes people's lives. I'm going to talk to you about how events shape lives and how traditional storytelling falls. I'll listen to that. Oh, wait, what? Like that right turn is a really fun one. And this is actually just that. Like, this is just such a good version of that. It's unbelievable.
Wow. Yeah, that's cool. I could easily just rebrand this in a different place with a different title. I mean, I could literally just put it on Vimeo again with a separate title and see what it does. I could put it on 10 times with 10 different titles or 10 different pictures or whatever. It'd be
Do it.
interesting to see
That'd be hilarious.
which one gets the clicks,
Actually, that would be hilarious. Would you be up for us helping you write some good titles?
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Does anyone here want to help write a title or two and some descriptions
was
and see
one in
which
the
one will
comments.
A/B test them?
There was an alternate title in the comments a while back.
Yes, well, that's what Rogers. I think we pinned it to the thread. Oh no, we didn't. Where is it?
I know who killed me. There's a great fucking title.
See,
that goes right to the heart of the tragedy.
We gotta talk to make
Yeah.
sure she's okay with us using her line.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I have like a tagline and a log line, and they're very generic. I mean, obviously the title is already the title when people read the log line, but let's see if I can pull it up somewhere here. But it's like, let's see if I can find it. Unique individual. Andrew Novick is a unique individual who collects almost everything and reveals some of the darker things he has acquired over the years.
The story of things.
Yeah.
Well done. Bam.
Yeah.
Story of Things is a good one.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of fun stuff you could do with it. That would be if I had any critique, because I do think the current arc works. I think the current setup works. I like the closing. It is last time, the first time watching it, I had to sort of sit for a minute. It was a lot. I think Pepsi was here, Roger was here. We just kind of, okay, so this is not what I thought it was going to be fucking at all.
Yeah, and I think so my log line says, "What does JonBenet Ramsey's Tricycle reveal about us?" So I'm trying to like turn it around. It's not about her, it's about us.
How about this? Let us wordsmith some shit, and we will come up with a bunch, and we will test them, and we will have
That
fun.
would be awesome. That would be so super cool. Yeah, I mean, and the thing about the ending, you mentioned the ending before. It's like I wanted it to end with a serious note at the cemetery, and like, you know, we're there kind of mourning her. It's not flippant. It's not, you know, and we walk away and we leave the trike there. Right? So some people are kind of left like, did you actually leave the trike there? And it's like, well, no, because it would have just got thrown away or someone would have stole it. So, but then the very final scene into the credit roll is where it's writing it by itself. And I think that was maybe an idea of the editor who really helped a lot with the kind of arc of it. With he has like a ton of subtle things that he put in, but it was like it's like we gave it back to her at her grave, but then wait, here it is writing itself, and it's going over bumps and it's going right at the camera, and it was like, you know, this is just the beginning of its journey, you know, because making the movie and you seeing the movie is just the beginning of what you're gonna think about it or tell someone about it or whatever. So it's like that's it kind of living on beyond the film.
I have a question. There was a scene towards the end. I don't know if I'm confusing that scene with what you're saying, but there's a little girl on the tricycle and she gets abducted or something like that. What's up with that?
Oh, that was the scene. So we wanted to take it back to the scene of the crime, as it were, which is the alley where it was originally found by me, allegedly. And so we had this kid who was dressed up like JonBenet, you know, several points throughout the movie. And so she was riding it down the alley in the back of the house where the trike was originally found. And you know, we filmed a couple takes, and she was riding in the public space, not in the driveway of the people. And so we weren't really doing anything wrong, but the garage door opened and we all just like freaked out and ran. Like we were like, oh my God, we got to get out of here. And like, so the mom was there, Mariah was there, somebody grabbed the kid, somebody grabbed the trike, the cameraman grabbed the camera, but it was still rolling. So we're all like running away. So we were just running away from the people who, I don't know if you saw my comment in there, but the current owners of the house is Robert Schuler's daughter. Pastor Robert Schuler, like the old white-haired guy with the thick glasses. He's like a televangelist. And they bought the house to try to give it like some love, you know, or whatever. But yeah, we were just scared. We were scared of the people catching us filming, even though we weren't doing anything wrong. But it did look kind of like an abduction scene.
That's so good.
One of those things we wouldn't have expected. So like we put it in the movie because we thought it was kind of funny. But yeah, it's like it's not necessarily so there's some kind of lower third that says something. I can't remember what it says, but about that's the house or something.
Crazy. I am going to bounce. I'm going to leave the recording, and Andrew, please, please continue chatting. I have to go be a dad, put my son to bed, all that fun stuff. When this is over, just go ahead and take off. There's no rush. I would just want to thank you very much. This has been a wonderful discussion. And again, I genuinely really, really like this documentary and found it to be much more than I expected. Awesome. And I'm really glad we got a chance to share it with the group and with you tonight. Yeah. So thank you very much.
Thank you for putting this on, and thanks for introducing me to everybody. And it's cool.
Yeah, everyone please continue because this is very good discussion.
Yeah, and Andrew, if you have to go, feel free as well at this point.
Yeah, I mean, let me know if you guys have any other thoughts or comments.
No, that was me. I spoke as I was muting myself. I apologize. Bye bye.
Huh. Um, my other question, I guess, is again about collecting. Um, Collecting is a very fun thing for you, it seems, because you seem to be a pretty, someone decided to make a or teach a lecture with you about fun, right? So
Yeah.
I assume for the most part that's true, but the darker side of collecting, one of the things I guess for me in collecting is that I'm always kind of scared of the idea of collecting things. Not, I do collect things, sort of out of a sense that of like a future me will appreciate it, right? Or kind of pressure myself. But the ability to forget, I think, rather than just like the idea of dark objects, right? I'm more interested in um, being able to forget some things and not collecting and not having items from periods of your life. Do you find yourself um, getting rid of things
Never.
often because you want to forget something? Never.
No. I mean, I'd say I have some things that are like, negative memories or whatever, but I don't get rid of those. I mean, I might box them up. I might not tell anyone or show anyone. Like I'm obviously like I'm a very social person, and like I love showing people stuff. So people will come over to my house and they ask, like, "Oh, this is cool," and I'd be like, "Oh, wait till you hear where I got that or whatever." And it's like I love sharing those things, so it's not just for myself. Um, it's for being able to talk about it and show people and remember. And so, but yeah, I seldom get rid of anything. Like I sold a couple things on eBay when eBay first started, but they were like doubles of things that I had. Like I really my website's
Sure.
isaveeverything.com, and like I really don't get rid of anything. I don't do collecting for um monetary value or resale. Like some people they know what's valuable, and they find the stuff and they take it to their thrift mall and they sell it or whatever. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think I can collect and have something and hide it away so that it's not seen. Um, but I still have it. And like I don't know if I lost everything in a fire. There's just a fire in Boulder, and like 1,000 homes burned down to the ground, like nothing left. Um,
Yeah.
that would be awful. Um, but like I don't know, I'm not so attached to things that I couldn't live without them either. Like I collect things. I mean, in some sense, out of convenience. Like somebody posted hoarder in the in the comments, and when I had that big art show, somebody from the radio came and they were gonna interview me about this art show of like this. There was 8,000 objects, and he brought the definition of hoarder from like the Mayo Clinic or whatever. But then he's like, I was going to lead off with this definition of hoarding, but he's like, this is not hoarding. If this stuff destroyed your life, or if you couldn't pay your rent because you had all this stuff that you could have sold, or had to have a storage
Yeah.
space for 20 years, or there were dead animals underneath it, or rotten food, like
Yeah.
that's what a hoarder
Piss.
is, like
Yeah.
a detriment to your life by your collecting. But it's like
Mhm.
I have a
There's
job.
no disorder.
That's a disorder. And like, I mean, I'm sure there's some disorders in here just by not wanting to get rid of anything. Um, and like, I have the willpower to not go in a thrift store or a yard sale. But if I
Okay.
do go in a
Well, that's
thrift
good.
store or a yard sale, I will almost always buy something. So, so I have the willpower to not go. But if I see something, it's like, oh man, this would go perfect with in one of my collections. So, I mean, there's definitely some disorder, but I think it's yeah, it's I have a job, I have a house, I got room for stuff. I try not to acquire too much more anymore, but it's not affecting my life negatively. So it's actually affecting my life positively because I get lots of accolades and attention and um, news people coming over and stuff. So um,
Gotcha.
Is there anyone here that wants to talk about Casa Bonita? I know a couple people had some reference points to it.
Unfortunately, I think that person left.
Okay.
But I could be wrong.
Yeah, we never kind of got around to it. Somebody said on the chat, is there something in particular that tends to draw you in? There's I would say there's a lot of things, but like stuff like human bones or human teeth or blood, like, is one of my kind of fascinations. So that's definitely those things, or dental tools, medical stuff. Like some of those things are kind of the darker side of things. But I also collect Barbies and stuff, Baby Yoda stuff. So it really has no bounds, in a lot of ways. But yeah, we talked about Satanic Panic in the chat. Like Warlock Pinchers was a parody satanic band. Like we chanted Satan, Satan, Satan. We had lyrics about like, we're in the league with Satan. We bowl a perfect game. And we, Satan, our tagline in interviews was that Satan wrote our lyrics. We sold our souls to Satan so we could have some good lyrics, stuff like that. We had a sell your soul to Satan raffle, where we'd actually have people sign on the dotted line, like, I willingly give my soul to Satan, in exchange for being in the drawing to win Warlock Pinchers merchandise.
That's awesome.
We had official Time of Satan watches. Like, so I love, like, grandiose satanic stuff and, weird horror things. What?
Are you a Satanist?
Cool.
I'm not a Satanist, I guess, because I don't really join stuff, but I think there's a press section on my website. ISaveEverything.com that's got links to a bunch of.
Well, that actually is your website. I thought that was a joke.
Oh no, that's my site. One of the other things I collect is domain names. At one point, I owned like 90
enough.
domain names, but I've let a bunch expire because the first thing, if I ever have an idea, like I had this idea of like cute roadkill. I was like, I don't even know what that is, but I love it. And I bought the domain name. I was like, I'll make T-shirts. I'll have like kids draw roadkill or whatever. I never did anything with it for like 15 years, so I eventually let it expire. But yeah, I buy a lot of domain names.
Cool.
And
awesome.
I save everything.
Yeah, when you said that, I thought you were like, yeah, man, that's my website. Like, yeah, no.
Like, that's my jam. No, it's actually my website. I had a braceface.net. Because I had a line of braces positive T-shirts. Because I love braces, and I was all excited when I was a kid to have braces. And I thought it would be cool if dentists gave these out to their patients or orthodontists. That was like, I got that artist Shag to draw some dental stuff. This was in the 90s. But yeah, I Save Everything's kind of broken. I haven't updated it in a while, but I know there are some there's some links on there to some of the collection stuff. If you Google me, if you dare Google me, you'll find all sorts of stuff. There's a really good article called Blood and Pancakes that kind of goes through a lot of that stuff that I've done too.
Cool. What's your upcoming project, or what projects are you working on right now?
That's a good question. I started a themed pop-up bar with several people. So in Denver, there's a basement of a club that just wasn't being used, and the owner's like, hey, cool people that I know, like, he got together 5 of us, and he's like, do you guys want to do something in here? So we made a themed, like a 6-week long themed pop-up bar. And we did one in October that was like Victorian horror, and we did one in November, December that was the Cave of the Yuletide Villains. It was about like Krampus and all his friends in their annual meeting of the villains.
Cool.
And so we'll probably do a spring show for that. There's a really wacky weirdo guy collector in Boulder that collects, actually, he probably has at least 5 times more things than I do. And I got asked to curate a collection of, an art show of his collections. But I'm hoping to make a documentary about that because he's there again, like the collections is cool and he's got a lot of cool stuff, but the guy is what's interesting. Is he takes a notebook to garage sales and he writes down all the things that he bought at each sale with a map and then whatever interactions he had with the person he bought it from. And so like that, the leader is that he collects a lot of weird stuff, but the guy is what's the interesting thing. So I'm going to work on that this year too. I also design
Cool. That sounds
puzzle
really cool.
hunts, kind of like an escape room type thing. One clue leads to the next location, and then there's a clue at that location that leads to the next location. And I've done a couple of these like sanctioned things with the History Colorado Center. So they fund it and pay me to help create it, which is awesome. We've done like 3 or 4 week experiences. So I think there's probably some more of that kind of stuff coming up too.
Neat. Yeah. No. If and when that film comes out, we'll have to a screening. That sounds awesome.
Yeah. You guys are a good critical group of watchers and people who don't know me. I guess you know me now, but it's like a lot of people who I talk to about my projects or my film or whatever is like people that I know. So it's nice to talk to other people too.
I guess one question that hasn't been asked that I think is always a good question to ask a filmmaker is, I guess, like, what's your favorite shot from the film or your favorite moment from the film, if you have a favorite one or one that you think is maybe overlooked.
Yeah, that's darn, I don't know. It's like when you make a film, you watch everything so many times, like you see it like
Yes.
hundreds and hundreds of times. I guess the very opening of the film, where like it's just showing like every object for like, 1/20th of a second. It's like every time I watch that, different things kind of pop out because like just when you glance at something, you kind of freeze frame it in your mind. So I see different stuff in that feed all the time. Like when it's going that fast, you have to like pick something to kind of freeze frame. So I kind of like that shot. And I think the times that the tricycle is moving by itself, I like because that's just it's an eerie kind of thing. There's a couple points in the movie where it's like rolling down the hill that I think there's one that's right outside the Justice Center, which is like where they do all the trials and stuff in Boulder, and and that one gets pretty overlooked. And there was one of the takes of that because I was just shooting it by myself. I would like start the camera, go up to the top of the hill and like let it go. But at one time it almost went into Boulder Creek. So whenever I see that shot, like I see what happened after where I was like, oh my God, and I'm like diving after it to try to save it from going in the creek. But that's something that you don't see that happen, but I see it happen because I lived through it. So
That's interesting to hear because like that's the thing for objects like this, people ascribe meaning like we talked earlier, and there's a form of haunting. And like with collections and different objects, people are they keep a spirit or they imbue a spirit into the object. And it's like the way you handle the bike all through your documentary, you're just like, hey, what's up? Like, and you show up with it. I think it's like really, it not puts off, but I don't know how to say this in English, but it's disturbing for people because normally people will sacrifice something like this, keeping intact the spirit of the little girl in the bike, and you're just like doing whatever with it. And then you're talking about the way you actually shot some of the sequences, and you the bike was doing stunts,
yeah.
Oh man,
It does
taking
all
apart
its
the
own
bike
stunts.
is, I think, is my favorite.
And well, and even like on the red carpet and stuff, because so I made a short film that it didn't reveal a lot, like even with the psychics and stuff. But that was when we're on the red carpet, we were at the premiere of the short film. I was able to get this kind of filmy stuff in, so the self-referential. Yeah, we were on the cover of the Denver Post, above the fold from whatever that movie, La La Land. We were above La La Land, and I'm holding the trike above my head. It was like it was clearly like a triumph moment, not a gingerly taking care of this sacred artifact, kind of giving it the personality and the that kind of pop cultureness, not the tragedy side of it. Well, cool, man. Everybody, thanks again so much. Feel free to get a hold of me anytime through Brooks or on my website or Facebook or whatever. Like I'm somewhat easy to find, but yeah, I appreciate everyone being on here. And I haven't watched Brooks's TED Talk yet, so I'm gonna have to check that out.
You're in for a treat, dude.
Oh, cool. Man. Well, cool. Thanks again, and I'm signing off.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
so much for coming,
All
Andrew.
right.
We will see you later.
Yeah.